In the middle of a silent night, Professor Desai leaves his office, and while talking to his wife on the phone, he begins to hear strange noises around him. Realizing that he may be being stalked by someone, the man decides to hang up the call and tries to find the source of the sound. At that moment, Desai comes across a mysterious woman, and before he can understand what's going on, he ends up being surprised by an Atrociraptor. Desperate, the scientist tries to flee back into the building, but the doors are already locked, preventing him from getting back to safety. To frighten her target even more, the woman uses her command whistle, causing the Atrociraptor to run towards its prey. Since he has no chance of escaping, Desai asks why he is being chased, and the dinosaur trainer decides to approach him so that she can whisper her orders. At the airport, Kenji and his friends watch Brooklyn depart, who has boarded a plane alongside Soyona, and soon after, they come across Barry, a French intelligence agent. The man explains that he will take the group to the United States in one of his military planes so that they can return home safely, and although they are reluctant, they decide to trust him. So the youngsters travel on the plane with one of the rescued dinosaurs, and Barry says that once they reach their destination, they can take the animal to a vet. Realizing that the man's intentions don't seem so clear, Kenji and Darius decide to go and talk to him, so that they can understand the secret agent's real objectives. The young man then asks what Barry knows about Soyona, but the man says he doesn't have much information about the woman, and only knows that she is one of the main illegal dinosaur traders. Curious, the agent asks Darius why Brooklyn is working alongside that woman, and the young man begins to reveal everything they've been through, causing Kenji to become desperate. Listening to the whole explanation, Barry realizes that the young people seem to know a lot more information than he expected, and says that he would like to hear everything they have discovered when they land at their destination. The group then gathers in the rear area of the plane, but at that moment, Sammy reveals that the Kentrosaurus doesn't seem to be breathing. Desperate, the girl asks her friends to run and find some medicine, while she tries to keep him alive with her first aid skills. Quickly, Ben manages to find a dose of the medication, and when she hears that the substance can eliminate the dinosaur, Sammy says that they have no other choice, and puts it on the animal's neck. In a few seconds, the Kentrosaurus returns to consciousness, but when it notices that its container is open, it escapes from the cage. Thanks to this, the young people become desperate and scream as they try not to be hit by the dinosaur's tail. Hearing the noise of all the chaos on the radio, Barry rushes to the teenager's aid, but the animal's attacks make him lose his balance, and the man lets his tranquilizer gun slip out of his hands. Soon afterwards, the Kentrosaurus attacks Sammy, who manages to dodge the attack, but in doing so, the creature's tail ends up piercing the wall of the plane. At that moment, the aircraft begins to fall towards the ocean, while all the systems collapse with the great pressure that the hole is causing. Due to the sudden movements they are undergoing, the young people begin to levitate around the cabin, and after crashing into the wall, Barry falls unconscious. At the same time, Kenji hears the siren coming from the control panel, and says that they need to stabilize the plane immediately. Meanwhile, the rest of the group tries to deal with the out-of-control dinosaur, and although he manages to retrieve the weapon, Darius ends up falling to the ground, causing the object to be thrown away. So that they can put an end to the chaos once and for all, Sammy takes advantage of the moment when everyone is floating to retrieve the gun, and is almost hit by the creature, only to be saved by Barry at the last moment. Realizing that they are about to crash, Kenji and Ben pull with all their might, making the plane in a safer position for an emergency landing. At that moment, the sudden movements of the aircraft cause the dinosaur to fall to the ground, and taking her chance, Sammy hits the animal with the tranquilizer darts. Soon after, the plane ends up descending at very high speed, causing the young people to have a catastrophic forced landing in the middle of an Italian forest. Despite this, they all manage to survive the plane crash, and taking advantage of Barry's distraction, the youngsters decide to escape so that they won't be interrogated by French intelligence. At dawn, the group arrives in a small town in Italy, and Ben decides to take his friends to the home of his girlfriend Gia, whom he met online. While trying to recap everything they've been through in the last few days, the youngsters are scolded by Nona, the girl's grandmother, who claims that dinosaurs are creatures from another world sent to punish humans. In addition, the old woman tells him that all those creatures need to be eliminated as soon as they are found, and upon hearing this, Kenji becomes frightened, making him decide to leave the dinner table. Thanks to Nona's threats, the young man remains silent in one of the rooms and protects Acorn's egg while hoping that the baby will still be able to hatch. The next day, Darius realizes that his friend is becoming increasingly saddened by the whole situation, and decides to go out with him so that they can talk for a while. At the same time, Yas decides to check on the state of the dinosaur egg, but when she does, she discovers that the baby has just hatched, leaving only the rest of the shells around the bed. Desperate, the girl alerts her friends about the animal's disappearance, and after assuring them that Nona hasn't found it, they try to split up to look for it. At this point, Ben and Gia check the latest dinosaur news and discover that Professor Desai has just declared his full support for Biosyn's rule over all dinosaurs. After reading the reports, the young people are confused, as they remember that the man was always against corporations, as he knew they would become dangerous if they gained so much power. Back on the road, Kenji and Darius continue their conversation as they travel in their vehicle, but at that moment, they get scared by a mysterious creature, which causes them to skid off the road. Frightened, the young men try to understand what they have just witnessed, and look around to find the animal, believing it to be nothing more than an ordinary deer. However, the pair realize that it doesn't seem to be just any animal, and they decide to leave the place before the vehicle stops working. At Gia's house, the group finds some remnants of the hatchling near the kitchen, and when they come across a pan moving on its own, they rush to get Nona out of the room. Trying to get her grandmother to leave, the girl breaks one of the decorative plates, allowing the trio to retrieve the object that is trapping the animal. At that moment, the girls end up dropping the pot on the floor, causing the hatchling to be thrown towards the feet of Kenji and Darius, who arrive at the house at the same moment. When he comes across the dinosaur he has been protecting for so long, the young man is thrilled, and after naming him Smoothie, he celebrates the birth of the little one with his friends. Soon after, Darius takes Gia outside and tells her about the attack they suffered during the trip, but during the conversation, the trio find a feather in the vehicle's exhaust fan. Far away, Brooklyn receives a new prosthetic arm as a gift from Soyona, and after a few minutes of training, she sets off alongside the woman towards Biosyn. Confused about the woman's intentions, the girl asks why she is joining such a dangerous and dubious corporation, and she replies that the reason is simpler than it seems. Soyona explains that with Biosyn's help, they will be able to sell the ownership of hundreds of dinosaurs around the world, and will be able to generate huge profits from this practice. The woman also reveals that they will have no taxes or laws to follow, so they will be able to do business with all kinds of customers, regardless of the consequences. The pair then make their way to one of Biosyn's underground hideouts, located in the middle of Malta, and when they meet Dodgson, Brooklyn decides to record the conversation with her cell phone. The man explains that now that they have Desai as a UN representative on their side, his corporation will be able to carry out any kind of trade with dinosaurs, and will generate overwhelming profits. Just then, Dodgson realizes that he has forgotten his briefcase in his office, and Brooklyn offers to go and get it. Thanks to this, the girl manages to check all the records being uploaded by the man, and decides to contact her friends so that they can investigate Professor Desai's situation. Back at Gia's house, the youngsters get together to try to find the species of dinosaur that has the same feathers as the one they found, when suddenly they hear Brooklyn's call on the computer. Realizing that their friend is acting strangely, the young people are confused and start fighting over how to answer the messages, as their opinions are still extremely divided. However, Kenji doesn't want to follow all the madness and leaves the room, only to be found by Nona. Annoyed, Ben orders the people to stop arguing and records a video to answer the girl's questions. Seeing the faces of all her friends, Brooklyn is relieved, but she can't respond to the group, as she still feels guilty about everything she's done lately. So the young woman makes a short recording to send back to Ben, and Sammy is outraged at the way her friend is treating them after everything that has happened. Trying to calm the situation, Yasmina says that the girl may be in danger, and Ben agrees, but Darius says that this doesn't seem to be the case. After contacting the group, Brooklyn walks back towards the vehicle, but is suddenly surprised by the sinister trainer, who uses her whistle to command her Atrociraptors. Noticing the girl's delay, Soyuna rushes to find out what's going on and stops the trainer from attacking her with her dinosaurs. In order to control the situation, the woman uses her laser device, which makes the Atrociraptors run towards their cages. Immediately afterwards, the dinosaur trader says that if the woman tries to eliminate Brooklyn again, she will make her deeply regret her actions. Now that Smoothie has been found, Kenji rushes to dodge Nona's attacks, and claims that the hatchling is just a small animal that can't protect itself. Sensitized, the elderly woman decides to allow the little dinosaur to stay in her house, and asks him to clean up while she finishes preparing lunch. So that he can do this, Kenji puts Smoothie into one of the pots and goes off to talk to the rest of the group, believing that Nona will take care of the animal. Noticing that the hatchling is about to go potty inside the container, the woman refuses to allow him to do so and takes him outside, ordering him to use the garden as his toilet. A few minutes later, Kenji asks where Nona left the animal, and despairs when he realizes that Smoothie has disappeared. Nearby, one of the locals goes outside his house so that he can call for his dog, but in doing so, he comes across a gigantic dinosaur. In shock, The man tries to offer the bowl of food to the monster, but it ignores the food and lunges at its prey, knocking it out instantly. In the morning, Smoothie walks happily through the city and explores his surroundings while looking for food, without even realizing that he is being watched by a creature. In the meeting room of the safe house, Soyuna and Brooklyn are waiting for Dodgson to arrive, but when they look at the television, they come across some breaking news. When she realizes that the man has used the trainer to eliminate the regional counselor, the woman is furious and destroys the device with her bare hands. After the meeting, Brooklyn asks why the broker hasn't discussed it with Dodgson, and she replies that in order to have full control of the dinosaur market, she will need to maintain her partnership with him. However, the young woman claims that the man may end up trying to betray them, and offers to infiltrate the illegal business operations so that she can discover the criminals' real intentions. Brooklyn then sets off towards the center of the illegal dinosaur market, where she comes across criminals putting the dinosaurs up against each other. Soon afterwards, the girl realizes that some of the Jurassic animals are being sold as food in a butcher's shop, and several hatchlings are caged as exhibits. So that she can understand how all those practices work, Brooklyn uses her bionic arm to frighten one of the criminals, ordering him to tell her what he knows about the illegal market. During the arguments in Gia's room, the kids start to hear screams coming from outside, and come across Kenji and Nona fighting non-stop. Confused, they ask what's going on, and the young man says that his baby is missing, thanks to the old woman's inconsequential decisions. So the group decides to run through the city in search of Smoothie. And as soon as they find him, they realize that the hatchling is grunting in the direction of the darkness. As they approach, Kenji tries to understand what the animal is seeing, and as he looks into the shadows, the group comes across a large pyroraptor. Before the youngsters could be attacked by the creature, Nona shouts in its direction, and after retrieving Smoothie, she orders the monster to leave, leaving him confused by her lack of fear. The problem is that at that moment, the group ends up being surprised by a trio of Atrociraptors who manage to surround the old woman. Trying to prevent the woman from being attacked, Darius asks her to get down, whereupon the trio of dinosaurs charge at Pyroraptor, attacking him furiously. Quickly, Ben runs towards Nona, and after preventing her from being attacked, the young man pulls her away from the fight, being chased by Kenji, who manages to rescue Smoothie. Taking advantage of the predator's distraction, the group runs for cover, while the trio of dinosaurs try to eliminate the Pyroraptor at any cost. Now that they are safe, the young people try to understand why those Atrociraptors have appeared, at which point they realize that a pair of vehicles have arrived at the scene. Soon afterwards, the trainer appears in front of the vans, and uses her whistle to command the dinosaurs, who begin to surround their enemy towards her, allowing the animal to be locked up by the woman. Afterwards, the criminals leave the scene with their vehicles, and now that they have recovered the hatchling, Kenji hugs Nona, thanking her for her help at such a dangerous time. With everyone gathered around, Darius says that the situation seems to have gotten much worse than they imagined, because from now on, the trainer seems to be working alongside Bison. For this reason, the young man explains that Brooklyn must know all this information, and in order to prevent her friend from being eliminated by the criminals, they need to find her as soon as possible. At that moment, Gia reveals that she recognized the setting behind the recording, and says that the young woman must be in the catacombs of Malta. However, Kenji and Sammy refuse to take part in this plan, saying that the girl has already had her chance to redeem herself, and yet she has decided to remain by Soyona's side. Upon hearing this, the other members of the group are shocked by the pair's decision, and ask them not to develop any kind of anger towards Brooklyn, since they still don't know what's happening to her. Annoyed, Sammy takes Ben's cell phone and starts calling the girl, so that they can see how she will react when she talks to them directly. At the illegal market hideout, Brooklyn starts asking the criminal a lot of questions, while photographing the place to get proof of everything that's going on. During the conversation, the girl realizes that she is being watched by a mysterious man, but even so, she continues talking to the man and reveals Bison's intentions. Brooklyn explains that in order for Soyona to be able to trust her companions, she is looking for new members for her team, before the corporation behind the market ends up destroying the world with dinosaurs. Just then, the young woman receives a call from Sammy, and after answering, she asks her friends to stop bothering her, as she is busy at the moment. Realizing that the mysterious man is still watching, Brooklyn decides to hang up the call, causing the group to start arguing after being ignored by the girl once again. Furious, Nona and Gia scold the youngsters, who end up separating after disappointing each other. After managing to corner her pursuer, the girl realizes that it is Davi, her former journalist colleague, who is excited to see her again, saying that he is also investigating Bison. In order to prevent the man from blowing her cover, Brooklyn asks him to meet her in an area away from the place, and after getting rid of the journalist, she reunites with Soyona. Soon after, the woman meets the trainer and begins to praise her for being such an efficient and loyal companion, but then she decides to teach her employee a lesson. Soyona explains that regardless of the affection her Atrociraptors have for their leader, they will always obey their instincts over humans, and points her laser at the woman's body. When she realizes that she is about to be attacked by her animals, the trainer gets scared, but before that can happen, the broker sends the predators to their cages. Soyona then reveals that those dinosaurs will be sold just like all the others, and the news makes the woman even angrier. Far away, the trainer's van continues to transport the captured Pyroraptor, but halfway there, the predator manages to overturn the vehicle, allowing it to break free. The next day, Ben reveals that he has devised a perfect plan so that they can rescue Brooklyn and keep Smoothie safe at the same time. The young man explains that Sammy and Kenji are going to return to the United States with the hatchlings so that they can reunite him with Acorn and make sure he is safe with his mother. Soon after, Ben tells him that Darius and Yasmina must team up with him to drive to the Malta ferry, where they will take action to rescue Brooklyn on their own. So the group prepares to put the plan into action, and after saying goodbye to their friends, the trio sets off towards the catacombs. In the hideout, Brooklyn makes some recordings of the insane training of the Atrociraptors, using Soyona's laser to command the dinosaurs. At that moment, the young woman notices a lantern illuminating one of the tunnels, and when she checks the source of the light, she comes across Davi once again. Annoyed, Brooklyn orders him to leave immediately, but the journalist ignores her and steals her cell phone, shocked by the amount of evidence she has already collected. Suddenly, the young woman hears Soyona approaching and pushes David into one of the cages, telling him that he must remain still or he will be devoured by the Atrociraptor. When she meets up with her assistant again, the woman orders her to show her the recording they're going to use for the dinosaur commercials, and Brooklyn leans on the front of the cage to retrieve her cell phone. Afterwards, the young woman shows her video to Soyona, who is proud of her performance, and before leaving, she says that they are making a great team together. Soon afterwards, the journalist comes out of his cage and, furious that his partner is helping a criminal, he scolds her, saying that he no longer feels like being like her. Outraged, Brooklyn claims that she's doing it for the greater good, but at that moment, she realizes that she was about to order an attack on David unconsciously, and is shocked that she almost didn't realize it in time. Realizing that he is in danger in that place, the young man leaves, and after retrieving the laser, the young woman orders the Atrociraptor to return to its cage. Far from there, Ben and his friends sneak through the streets of Malta, and after spying on one of the criminals who was approaching, they manage to break into the place, where they come across the entire illegal dinosaur market. Devastated by all the terrible situations the animals are going through, the youngsters decide to leave the place, and on the other side of the hideout, the trainer realizes that her Atrociraptors are no longer in their cages. Outside, Ben and Yasmina try to calm Darius, who is devastated after everything they witnessed in the catacombs, but as they walk, the trio come across Brooklyn waiting for them. After hiding, the young woman reveals that Soyona is about to sell the Atrociraptors to one of her clients, and has also ordered the trainer to eliminate Davi. Brooklyn explains that they need to take down the illegal market immediately, before the woman takes over the entire criminal dinosaur trade and endangers the entire planet. Far away, Kenji and Sammy are getting ready to go home, and as a last present, Gia gives Smoothie a cat cap, which will allow him to disguise himself during the trip. Halfway there, the trio come across the crashed van from the night before, and decide to get closer to find out what happened. In the middle of the catacombs, Brooklyn meets up with Davi again, and while they're talking, the pair are surprised by the trainer, who walks towards them. Quickly, the journalist ends up being knocked out, and as much as she tries to run away, the young woman ends up being held down by the woman, who removes her bionic arm. Soon afterwards, Brooklyn desperately tries to escape, but she is easily captured, and so that she won't be eliminated by the trainer, the girl tells her that they can recover their raptors together. In the middle of the snowy highway, Kenji and Sammy investigate the abandoned van, and discover that not only is it empty, but it also had automatic steering. At that moment, the trio come across a giant grasshopper, and while flying around the place, the insect ends up being devoured by the Pyroraptor. Trying to remain silent, the pair return to the vehicle with Gia, who, by locking the door, attracts the dinosaur's attention. Frightened, the young people remain motionless so that they won't be found, but on noticing that the Pyroraptor has set off down the road towards the town, the driver alerts her friends. Realizing that the inhabitants of the region may be in danger, Sammy and Kenji conclude that they cannot allow this to happen, and from now on, they will have to deal with the threat of the predatory dinosaur on their own. In the alleys of Malta, Bem and his friends discover that Barry has arrived in the city, and after contacting him, the the trio sets out to find him at his current location so that they can exchange information. While searching for the agent, the youngsters come across Davi running through the streets, and the journalist reveals that Brooklyn has just been captured by the trainer. So the group sets off to rescue the girl, leaving Barry alone in one of the alleys, and after contacting his companions, the man plans to meet up with them so that they can enter the illegal market together. Far away, Kenji and Sammy search for the Pyroraptor alongside Gia, collecting the reddish feathers they find along the way. During the search, the trio finds the dinosaur about to attack dozens of tourists around the mountain, and in order to alert everyone, Gia uses the emergency siren. At the same time, Kenji and Sammy run towards the snow skis, and use the vehicles to scare the creature enough to make it move away from the humans around the mountain. At the hideout, Brooklyn takes the trainer to her Atrociraptors as promised, and noticing the woman's concern for her dinosaurs, the young woman says they can work together to defeat Soyona. She explains that the sale of the predators is about to take place, and in order to stop it, they must wait until the ideal moment, when French intelligence agents will intercept the buyers. So the pair hide in the truck and wait for the perfect moment to ambush Soyona along with all the investigators. On the snowy mountain, Kenji and Sammy manage to surround the Pyroraptor, but before it can be defeated, it escapes once again and runs into one of the people around it. The girl quickly runs over the dinosaur with her vehicle, causing it to plunge to the ground and jump right behind her. Thanks to this, Sammy ends up falling off her snow ski, but before her friend can be eliminated, Kenji makes several advances towards the monster, which starts to run away scared. Seizing their chance, the duo chase the dinosaur with their vehicles, making it go away, but after all the chaos, a gigantic avalanche begins. Back at the safe house, Brooklyn and the trainer find Soyona waiting for the buyer to arrive, when suddenly, the criminals are surprised by a group of police officers. Suddenly, the young woman pushes her opponent out of the way, but she manages to resist and attacks the girl, starting a fight inside the truck, which begins to speed away. At the same time, the trainer takes advantage of the swing of the acceleration to knock down Brooklyn, who begins to slide towards the exit of the vehicle. Thanks to the confrontation that has begun, the trio of young people realize that the illegal market has collapsed, and all the creatures are escaping, generating a dinosaur explosion that is heading towards the group. Trying to prevent themselves from being buried by the snow, Kenji and Sammy speed up as much as possible, but they are quickly hit by the avalanche. After the disaster, Gia looks for the pair, extremely worried, and Smoothie starts screaming when he feels the presence of his owner right below him. Without wasting any time, the girl starts digging in the snow with her bare hands, helped by the other survivors of the avalanche. Due to the dinosaur's outburst, the catacombs tunnels begin to cave in, and to prevent them from being crushed, Yasmina pulls her friends out of the creature's way. Soon afterwards, several of the surrounding crates end up being destroyed by the animals, causing hundreds of monstrous locusts to be released. In the midst of the chaos, the youngsters are surprised by a large macabre dinosaur, which tries to devour the insects that are flying around the group. Thanks to the distraction, they manage to get away without being chased, but Darius ends up being left behind and uses one of the crates to scare the creature. As soon as they see Dodgson's office, the group runs inside, where they can protect themselves from the macabre insects. However, the shelter doesn't last long, and now that they know they have to find Brooklyn, the young people flee the place while trying to protect themselves from the locusts. After a major accident with the truck, Brooklyn wakes up amidst the rubble, where she finds Soyona using her laser to eliminate the French intelligence agents. Soon afterwards, Barry orders the woman to release the device, but she ignores him and triggers one of the cages, causing a huge explosion that ends up finishing off the investigator. Now that she is free, the woman frees one of the Atrociraptors and leaves, abandoning Brooklyn, who is found by the trainer. Furious at the girl's attempt to betray her, the woman decides to leave her alone to be crushed by the rubble, but the young woman doesn't give up and uses an iron bar to free herself. Brooklyn quickly rushes away from the scene, not even realizing that Barry has survived the explosion. In the catacombs, the youngsters realize that one of the dinosaurs is approaching, and hide among the rubble of the illegal market so that they won't be seen. However, one of the locusts ends up finding Ben, who is spotted by the predator, and so that his friend isn't devoured, Darius shouts for the group to flee, while he draws the monster's attention. As soon as they reach the exit, the young man knocks over a burning barrel, surrounding the dinosaur on fire, and allowing them to reach the outside, where the animals are wreaking havoc all over the city. Desperate, the youngsters flee through the region trying to deal with all the creatures along the way, at which point the trainer arrives on the scene, where she encounters Soyona. In a rage, she sets off towards the woman, dodging all the dinosaurs with extreme ease. During their escape, the group is surprised by the flying monsters, and they use the electric baton to hit them, preventing Ben and David from being devoured by them. Soon after, the youngsters are forced to keep running away, lest they be caught during the dinosaur fights around the city. After hiding, Ben reveals that he has found some of Soyona's records in Brooklyn's bionic arm, and when they analyze the information, they discover that the woman is going to the site above the catacombs. Meanwhile, the chaos in the city is increasing and Brooklyn continues to chase the trainer, who uses her whistle to search for her atrociraptors. Realizing that the inhabitants of Malta will be easily wiped out by the dinosaurs, the young people decide to split up, and Darius starts luring the creatures back to the catacombs with Yasmina. Before she could board her plane, Soyona was surprised by the trainer, who began to confront her in hand-to-hand combat. After being knocked down, the stockbroker tries to retrieve her laser, and so as not to be prevented, she throws sand in the woman's eyes, hitting her with a low blow. At that moment, Brooklyn approaches Soyona, who says that she will see to it that the trainer is punished for having disobeyed her orders. The villain then points the laser at the woman, who begins to be attacked by the dinosaur, causing the screams to attract the attention of the other Atrociraptors. In the catacombs, Darius ends up being knocked down by one of the dinosaurs, and before his friend is eliminated, Yasmina rescues him on her motorcycle. Soon afterwards, the youngsters realize that they haven't managed to bring all the animals to the tunnels, since the Carnotaurus isn't there. Despite being attacked, the trainer maintains her posture, and before she can be eliminated, she is rescued by the rest of the tamed dinosaurs, who help her regain the Atrociraptor's trust. Noticing that her laser doesn't seem to be having any effect, Soyona gets angry and decides to call for the gigantic Carnotaurus, using her laser to aim at her enemy. Even so, the trainer commands her dinosaurs to fight the monster by jumping on its back and biting off one of its legs. Annoyed by the bites, the Carnotaurus grabs one of the Atrociraptors with its mouth and throws it to the ground, crushing its target with its head. Desperate, the trainer rushes towards her dinosaur, but the poor animal can't resist its injuries and perishes within seconds. Realizing that she could lose her greatest companions, the woman shouts for the Carnotaurus to stop immediately, and tries to use her techniques to calm it down. However, this doesn't work and the trainer is devoured by the predator in a single bite. Noticing that their owner has been eliminated along with one of their siblings, the Atrociraptors run for their lives, and before they can leave, Soyona and Brooklyn are surprised by Darius and Yasmina. Irritated, the woman orders the girl to get on the plane immediately, but she refuses, saying that her friends can join them, as this would make them even more powerful and dangerous. Upon hearing this, Soyona says that this could never work, and Darius is outraged by everything Brooklyn is saying. Outraged, the young woman grabs the villain's laser and starts pointing it in their direction, causing Carnotaurus to approach. However, this was just a distraction on Brooklyn's part, which allowed the dinosaur to be hit by several tranquilizer darts. At the same time, Ben and Davi show up and take Soyona along with Barry and his French intelligence agents. Furious, the woman tries to attack Brooklyn, but the girl hits her with her bionic arm, causing her to fall to the ground and allowing the investigator to arrest the woman. Finally, the young people embrace after so long apart, but the young woman says that this war is not over yet, and together they set off towards Byasin in Soyona's helicopter. Far from there, Kenji and Sammy travel to the location of the corporation, because after discovering that Bumpy had been brought to Italy, they realized that they would have to go in there to reunite him with his mother. So the 6 from Nublar are preparing to continue their war against Byasin, so that they can ensure that all the dinosaurs on the planet are saved from the clutches of the evil criminals. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.